got arrested for catching my wife cheating, had my own daughter lie in court, nearly lost my house. And now, years later, karma hit them so hard that they're begging me for help. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these, but here we are. My life basically blew up in ways I didn't see coming, and it all started with me trying to do something nice for my family. What I walked into that day changed everything I thought I knew about them, and set off a chain of events I wouldn't wish on anyone. I figured I'd share the whole story because, honestly, it still feels unreal sometimes. I always thought I had a pretty decent life. Paul, 45, male, married to Sabrina, 43, female, and we've got one daughter, Melissa, 19, female, and in her second year of college. People used to say we were that stable family in the neighborhood. We had BBQs in the backyard, took family trips every summer, and I worked my ass off to give them a good life. Melissa always seemed close with me too. She'd call from school just to tell me about classes or laugh about some dumb drama with her friends. I didn't think we were perfect, but I figured we were solid. I trusted Sabrina. I thought I raised Melissa right. The house we lived in was my grandfather's. He left it to me before Sabrina and I even got married. It's been in my family for decades, and I always took pride in keeping it up. Every new coat of paint, every fix I did myself. That place was more than walls and a roof. It was part of who I was. Anyway, a couple months ago, I was on a short business trip. I wasn't supposed to be home until Friday, but things wrapped up early, so I figured I'd head back Wednesday afternoon. I even stopped by a florist on the way and grabbed red roses. Sabrina's favorite. Corny, maybe. But after almost 2 decades together, little surprises keep things alive, right? At least that's what I thought. I pulled up around 2 in the afternoon. Right away, I noticed a car parked out front that I didn't recognize. Black sedan, tinted windows. My first thought was maybe Sabrina's sister, or a friend had stopped by. Didn't think much of it at first. But when I walked to the front door, I noticed something weird. Muddy shoe prints on the steps, bigger than Sabrina's size. I unlocked the door, walked in, and called out, "Honey, I'm home early." Nothing. Usually she'd at least yell back from wherever she was. The house was quiet, except I thought I heard something faint upstairs. I set the flowers down on the counter and started heading up. As I reached the hallway, I heard it more clearly. Voices. A man's voice and then Sabrina's laugh. Except it wasn't the casual laugh I was used to. It was that kind of flirty laugh, the one you hear from a woman who's enjoying herself. It hit me strange because I hadn't heard her laugh like that in years. My stomach sank. The bedroom door was cracked open just slightly. I stopped and listened for a moment. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they'd hear it. And then I heard it. The man's voice again. Low, joking. Followed by Sabrina saying, "Shh, we'll get caught." That was enough. I pushed the door open, and the scene that burned into my head forever was right there in my own damn bedroom. Sabrina was on the bed with some guy I'd never seen before. He looked maybe mid-30s, built, dark hair. My bed. The bed where we slept. Where Melissa used to crawl in when she was little after a nightmare. That was where they were. Sheets half off, their clothes thrown on the floor like it was some cheap motel. Sabrina gasped and scrambled, pulling the blanket around her. The guy? He just leaned back like he wasn't even that bothered. He smirked, held up his hand like I was overreacting, and said, "Relax, man. She's not happy with you anyway. We can explain." Explain? Explain what? That my wife was screwing another man in my house, in my bed, in broad daylight, while I was out working? I don't even remember deciding to move. But the next thing I knew, I had him by the shoulders. I slammed him against the wall so hard a picture frame fell down. He tried shoving me back, but he wasn't ready for it. I landed a punch straight to his face, then another. His nose started bleeding instantly, and he looked shocked more than hurt, like he didn't expect me to actually fight back. Sabrina was screaming, grabbing at my arm, yelling for me to stop. But all I could see was this stranger in my bedroom, acting like he belonged there, acting like I was the problem. I finally stopped when I saw blood dripping down his face and onto the carpet. My head cleared for a second. I stepped back and told him he had 5 minutes to get the hell out before I called the cops. He didn't say a word. He just scrambled, grabbed his pants, and stumbled out half-dressed, still bleeding. Sabrina ran after him, calling his name. Chad, I would later find out. And then I was just standing there, in the middle of the wrecked bed, my flowers still sitting downstairs, the smell of roses mixing with the sweat and stink of betrayal. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my family shattered. I didn't stick around to beg or argue. Once Chad bolted and Sabrina went running after him, I stood in that wreck of a bedroom and made myself a promise. I wasn't going to grovel. I wasn't going to sit in the corner wondering what I did wrong. I knew damn well what happened. She disrespected me in my house, in my bed, and thought she could play the victim. I grabbed my keys, went downstairs, and left the flowers sitting right there on the counter, waiting for someone who didn't deserve them. The first night I stayed with a buddy across town. I didn't want to give Sabrina the satisfaction of me sleeping in a hotel like some loser, but I knew she'd come back with her new boy toy, and I wasn't going to give them a show. Sure enough, later that night, my phone lit up with missed calls. Her sister's number, then Melissa's. I didn't answer. When I finally did call Sabrina the next day, she didn't waste time. No apology, no let's talk, just straight to screaming. "You're insane, you attacked him. You could have killed him. I can't believe I've lived with a violent man for this long." I laughed into the phone. "Violent man? He was in my bed, Sabrina. He's lucky I didn't bury him in the backyard." She hung up. Melissa called a few hours later. At first I was relieved, thinking maybe she'd hear me out. But nope, She had already been spoon-fed her mom's version. Dad, how could you? Mom told me everything. You beat some guy half to death because you couldn't control your temper. I can't believe you're my father. That one stung. Not because I thought she was right, but because I realized how fast she picked a side. No hesitation, no asking me what happened, just blind loyalty to her mom. I told her the truth, that the guy wasn't some innocent stranger. He was a homewrecker who walked into our house like he owned it, but she didn't want to hear it. 2 days later, I drove back to the house to grab a few things. Clothes, tools, some documents I kept in the study. I figured I'd be in and out. That's when I heard the knock. 2 cops standing on my porch. Mr. Gibson, you're under arrest for assault. I actually laughed. Assault? In my own bedroom? Didn't matter. They cuffed me right there in front of my neighbors. Mrs. Kelly across the street was peeking through her blinds like it was the best TV she'd seen all week. Another guy I barely knew was standing in his driveway, shaking his head like I'd just been caught selling drugs. And there I was, standing on my own damn lawn in cuffs, getting shoved into a squad car, all because I dared to defend my house. Jail wasn't anything movie-worthy, but it was miserable in its own way. Cold, smelled awful, a metal bench that wasn't meant for sleeping. I didn't sleep a minute. But the thing is, I wasn't broken down crying. I just sat there, thinking about how I'd gotten here. Not from losing control, not from being reckless, but from being married to a woman who couldn't stay loyal and was now flipping the story to make me the monster. By morning, my lawyer arranged bail, and I was out. He shook his head as he read the charges. 3rd-degree assault. Could be worse, he said. Could be felony. I told him I wasn't losing sleep over it. Chad's nose isn't worth a felony, I said, and the lawyer smirked like he wasn't supposed to agree but did anyway. Walking into work after that was its own kind of punishment. I've been with the same company for 12 years, built a reputation as a reliable guy, someone clients could trust. Now, everyone had heard. The receptionist couldn't look me in the eye. My boss called me into his office and closed the door. Look, I believe you, he said, but clients are asking questions. If this turns into a conviction, we'll have to talk about your future here. That was another knife in the back. I hadn't done anything wrong except defend myself and my home, yet my job was on the line because Sabrina decided to turn it into a soap story. When I drove back to the house that night, the locks had already been changed. My key didn't work. I even noticed a patrol car cruising slowly down the block while the neighbors stared. Message was clear. I wasn't welcome in my own home. My lawyer told me Sabrina had filed for a temporary restraining order, said I was a danger to her, said she was scared I might hurt her. Absolute lies. I'd never laid a hand on her, never even raised my voice in a way that could be considered threatening. But now, according to paperwork, I was some kind of abusive monster. So I checked into a hotel. Same suitcase I'd had from the business trip, hadn't even unpacked it. That was my life now. Paying for a hotel, paying for bail, paying a lawyer. Meanwhile, Sabrina was living it up in that house, eating from my fridge, watching my TV, probably with Chad visiting whenever he wanted. My first instinct was to kick the damn door in. It's my house, my name's on the deed, always has been. But with that restraining order hanging over me, I knew exactly how it would play out. Cops wouldn't care whose name was on the paperwork. They'd haul me off again and tell me to take it up in court. So I played it smart. I walked away and got a hotel instead. Better to lose a few nights of sleep than hand them more ammo against me. Melissa texted again. This time it was shorter. You need help, Dad. Get anger management. Don't contact me until you do. I stared at the screen for a long time. Anger management? I've never had anger issues in my life. I've worked decades without a single fight. Never hit her. Never hit my daughter. Never hit anyone. Until the moment I found another man in my bed. That wasn't an anger problem. That was called being human. But apparently in this new version of reality, Sabrina's the victim, Melissa's the loyal daughter, Chad's the poor injured soul, and I'm the dangerous man who lost control. Funny thing is, I didn't feel out of control. Not then, not now. I felt clear. I knew what had to be done, and I wasn't going to roll over just because Sabrina and her affair partner thought they could rewrite the story. This was just round 1, and I wasn't planning on losing. The hearing for the restraining order came quicker than I expected. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of living out of a suitcase, paying for a hotel I didn't want, waiting for my chance to step back into my own house like I belonged there. My lawyer told me to keep my head down, stay calm, and let him handle the talking. Judges respect the guy who plays it cool, he said. Fine by me. I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to grovel to a cheater just to get a pat on the head from the system. We walked into the courthouse. Sabrina was already sitting there at the petitioner's table, dressed in her best sad wife outfit, black cardigan, and right beside her, Melissa, my daughter. Arms crossed, glaring at me like I was the villain out of some movie. That cut deeper than any punch I'd taken in my life. The judge came in, called us to order, and Sabrina's lawyer launched straight into it. Your Honor, my client has been living in fear for years. This man is controlling, manipulative, prone to violent outbursts. Last week's attack was just the latest in a long history of abusive behavior. I sat there, stone-faced. No shaking my head, no blurting out. Let them talk. My lawyer told me once you look rattled, the judge starts believing the other side. Sabrina put on a performance. How she had no freedom. She even said she was afraid I might hurt Melissa. That one made my blood boil. But I kept my arms folded and waited. Then came the part I didn't expect. The bailiff called Melissa to the stand. My own daughter. I watched her walk up there, avoiding my eyes the whole time. She started parroting her mom's story like she had rehearsed it. Growing up, Dad was controlling. He always wanted to know where I was, who I was with. He checked my messages, my emails. I was scared to make him angry. Scared of me? I was the guy who worked double shifts to pay for her soccer camps, who sat through 3-hour band concerts just to clap for her flute solo. Now suddenly I was the monster under her bed? When it was my lawyer's turn, he didn't waste time. He leaned on the podium and looked Melissa dead in the eye. Melissa, has your father ever hit you? No. Has your father ever hit your mother? No. Can you give a single specific example of him threatening either of you? Silence. My lawyer smirked. If you can't provide a single real incident, then what you're describing is parenting, not abuse. Melissa looked small in that chair after that. She couldn't come up with anything solid because there wasn't anything. Then my lawyer pulled the ace from his pocket. Your Honor, while opposing counsel claims my client is unstable, I'd like to present financial records that give context to what actually happened in that house. He laid down a folder thick with papers. Credit card statements, bank records, phone logs. 8 months worth. Sabrina stiffened in her chair. The judge flipped through them, line after line of hotel charges. Dinners for 2 at restaurants where the bill hit $300. Jewelry stores. Men's clothing boutiques. Your Honor, my lawyer said, this wasn't one mistake. This was a sustained affair, funded with marital money, hidden from my client while he was working to support this family. Notice the phone logs. Hundreds of calls to one number. That number belongs to Chad Lopez. The judge raised an eyebrow. Chad? The same man from the incident? Yes, my lawyer said. And then he handed over the receipts with Chad's name on the reservations. Some of them even had his driver's license copied for check-in. It was airtight. I sat there with my arms crossed, watching Sabrina squirm, watching Melissa shift in her seat, clearly realizing the story wasn't as black and white as her mother had fed her. When it was over, the judge leaned forward. Here's my ruling. The request for a permanent restraining order is denied. While Mr. Gibson's actions against Chad were inappropriate, this court does not see a pattern of abuse toward his wife or daughter. It was an isolated incident born out of extraordinary circumstances. Bang. Just like that, the restraining order was gone. Sabrina froze, her face red with rage. Melissa finally looked at me, eyes full of something between anger and confusion. As the bailiff called the next case, my lawyer leaned toward me and whispered, "Told you. You play it cool. You win." Walking out of that courtroom, I didn't feel like a beaten man. I felt sharp, focused. Even after the restraining order was denied, the locks had already been changed, and my lawyer told me to hold off until the divorce orders were sorted. So I kept living out of that hotel a little longer. Sabrina glared at me as I passed her in the hallway. Melissa wouldn't even look me in the eye. Fine. They'd chosen their side. And me? I wasn't done. This was just the warm-up. 2 weeks after the restraining order hearing, the divorce papers landed on my lawyer's desk. Sabrina wasn't wasting time. She wanted alimony, half the house, half my retirement, half everything. Reading the list of demands was almost laughable, if it hadn't been my life on the line. Her lawyer's opening argument painted me as unstable, a man with a history of violence who could not be trusted with financial control. He brought up the assault charge like it was Exhibit A in some murder trial. I sat there with my hands folded, calm as ever. Let them talk. They wanted to build me up as the big bad wolf? Fine. I knew my lawyer had silver bullets ready. When it was our turn, my lawyer started with the house. Your Honor, this property was inherited by my client years before the marriage. We have the deed, we have the will. It is not marital property. Miss Sabrina has no claim. Sabrina's lawyer jumped up, arguing about improvements made during the marriage. My lawyer didn't even flinch. He dropped a stack of receipts on the table. Kitchen remodel, basement, roof replacement, all things I'd paid for during the marriage. But even with marital money going into improvements, the house itself was inherited. It stayed separate property. And compared to the thousands Sabrina blew on hotels and jewelry for Chad, the judge wasn't buying her financially dependent story. The judge flipped through the papers and looked over her glasses at Sabrina's side. So far, I'm seeing a husband funding the maintenance of his own inherited property. Do you have anything concrete to show she invested? Silence. That's when Sabrina herself stood up, like she was about to deliver an Oscar-winning performance. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue and said, "Your Honor, I gave up my career for this family. I sacrificed my future to support him and our daughter. Doesn't that count for something?" I almost laughed out loud. Sacrifice her career? My lawyer leaned in and slid a folder to the judge. Inside were emails Sabrina had sent her old co-workers and even a Facebook post from 3 years ago. All of them saying the same thing. Finally quit. I was tired of the politics and the stress. I'm done with office life for good. The judge raised an eyebrow. So you weren't forced to quit? Sabrina stammered. I was under pressure. I couldn't handle. The judge cut her off. Miss Gibson, there's a difference between sacrifice and choice. This looks like choice. Her face turned red, and she went back to fake crying, dabbing her eyes like a soap actress. Then my lawyer hit with the financial angle again. Your Honor, opposing counsel is requesting spousal support, yet Ms. Gibson spent over $15,000 of marital funds on hotels, restaurants, and gifts for her affair partner. We have receipts. We also have phone records matching the transactions. This wasn't an isolated mistake. It was a lifestyle. The judge looked down at the paperwork, then back at Sabrina, and then she actually laughed. Out loud. Someone who spends $15,000 on hotels and jewelry for another man clearly knows how to handle money. You're not convincing me you were financially dependent, Ms. Kerport. It's Gibson. The room went dead quiet, except for the scribbling of the court reporter. Sabrina's lawyer shifted in his seat, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. That's when Sabrina lost it. "This isn't fair! I gave him the best years of my life. He's heartless, Your Honor. Absolutely heartless." And then Melissa stood up from the back, her face twisted with rage. "This is bullshit! You're ruining her life! She deserves everything!" The bailiff moved instantly. "Sit down, young lady." Melissa sat, but not before shooting me a glare like I was the devil himself. I didn't look away. I wanted her to know I saw her. When it was all said and done, the judge delivered the ruling. The house stayed with me. My retirement account stayed with me. My car, mine. Sabrina got her car, her personal belongings, $25,000 from our joint savings, and $12,000 credited for minor household contributions. That was it. No alimony. "Ms. Sabrina," the judge said firmly, "adultery has consequences. Using marital funds to support an affair is a breach of fiduciary duty. You made your choices. This court will not reward them." Bang! Case closed. Sabrina collapsed into her chair, crying like her world had ended. Melissa whispered something in her ear and glared at me again. But I wasn't moved. I walked out of that courtroom with my head high. I had played their game, taken every lie, every accusation, every fake tear, and I still came out on top. The way I saw it, this wasn't just a win. This was proof. Proof that I wasn't the unstable one, that I wasn't the monster they were trying to paint me as. Proof that I was still standing, while they were the ones falling apart. And I wasn't done yet. The divorce might have been settled, but the fallout was only getting started. As soon as we stepped out of the courthouse, Melissa came storming after me. She didn't even give me a second to breathe. "You ruined her life!" she snapped, her voice shaking but loud enough for everyone to hear. "You embarrassed her in there. You could have just let her have something. But no, you had to take everything." I turned, calm as ever. "No, Melissa. She ruined her own life. She cheated. She lied. She drained our money. All I did was show the judge the truth. Don't blame me because you don't like how it played out." She folded her arms, glaring at me like she didn't even recognize me anymore. "You're heartless. She gave you years of her life and you threw her away." I couldn't help but laugh. "She threw herself away in my bed with another man. And you? You helped her. Don't think I didn't hear every word you said in that courtroom." Her face went red. She wanted to argue more, but she didn't have the words. She stormed off to Sabrina's side, muttering something about how I wasn't the father she thought I was. Fine. If she wanted to rewrite history, she could live with a new script. That night, sitting alone at the hotel desk with a stack of bills in front of me, I made a decision. Melissa had chosen her side. She lied in court, backed her mother's play, and tried to bury me financially. There was no reason I should keep paying her tuition, her rent at college, or her credit card charges. She wasn't a kid anymore. She was 19, old enough to make her own choices. And if her choice was to side with her mother, then she could deal with the consequences like her mother. The next day, I called the college and cut off my direct payments. I called the bank and removed her from my card. Done. I knew it wouldn't take long for her to notice, and I was right. 3 days later, she called. Her voice was tight, trying to sound calm but full of panic. "Dad, my tuition payment didn't go through. The office says I'm going to get dropped from classes if it isn't covered in 2 weeks. What's going on?" "What's going on?" I said evenly. "Is that I'm not your wallet anymore. You wanted to stand with your mother? Then stand with her all the way. Let her pay your bills." Her voice shot up an octave. "She doesn't have the money. You know she doesn't. You can't just cut me off. I'll have to drop out." I leaned back in my chair, smirking. "Then get a job like everyone else. You think you're special? Thousands of college kids work their way through school. You'll survive." There was a long silence, just her breathing hard through the phone. Then she finally said, "I can't believe you do this to your own daughter." "No, Melissa. I can't believe my own daughter stood in court and lied under oath just to help her mom rob me. Actions have consequences. You made your choice." She hung up on me. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. Not happy, just clear. I was done funding people who stabbed me in the back. Once I finally got back into my house, the peace got even better. No Sabrina's nagging, no Melissa stomping around slamming doors, no fake smiles when I knew something was wrong. Just me, the quiet, and the space I worked hard to build. I'd eat what I wanted, watch whatever I wanted, leave my boots in the hallway if I felt like it. My house actually felt like mine again. Meanwhile, Sabrina was spiraling. Word got around that she was applying for apartments, but her credit was garbage and nobody wanted to take her. Most landlords want first month, last month, and security up front. Sabrina didn't have that kind of money, not after blowing thousands on Chad and then losing in court. So she stayed with her sister. Except her sister's husband wasn't having it. I actually got a call from him one night. He never liked me much, but he respected me enough to be blunt. "She's your mess, not mine," he said. "I've had her under my roof for weeks, and I'm about done. She doesn't clean, she doesn't cook, she just sits on her phone all day. And Melissa comes over like it's a damn reunion. I don't know how you lived with that man." I just chuckled. "Careful. If you let her, she'll never leave. Good luck," he sighed. "Don't wish that on me." I hung up smiling for the first time in a while. Because here's the truth. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. I spent nearly 2 decades giving Sabrina everything she wanted, bending over backwards to make her life easier, and she paid me back by cheating in my own bed. I put Melissa through school, gave her every chance at a future, and she paid me back by standing in court and trying to paint me as an abuser. So no, I wasn't going to lose sleep over cutting them off. I wasn't going to lie awake worrying about whether Sabrina's sister's husband got fed up. That wasn't my problem anymore. For the first time in a long time, I was living for me, and I planned on keeping it that way. Fast forward 2 years. Life had gone quiet for me, and honestly, I liked it. I worked, I came home to my house, I fixed things around the place, I kept to myself. No drama, no fights, no phone blowing up with guilt trips, just peace. But of course, my daughter and her mother weren't living in peace. That much was obvious the moment word started spreading through the family. Melissa had gotten married. To Jonah, some college boyfriend she'd been with on and off since freshman year. I wasn't invited naturally. I found out through my brother, who found out through a cousin. Supposedly it was a nice wedding, small but fancy. Sabrina footed the bill, even though she had no business paying for anything. She borrowed money left and right just to make herself look like the doting mother who could still host a grand wedding. I just shook my head when I heard that. Sabrina always cared more about appearances than stability. Instead of paying off debts, she was buying centerpieces and a rented ballroom. Typical. What little I knew about Jonah back then actually made me think he was decent. Kid came from a good family, studied accounting, seemed level-headed. In another world, if Melissa hadn't chosen her mother's path, maybe I would have been proud to call him my son-in-law. But Melissa was her mother's daughter through and through. It started as whispers. A guy she'd been meeting for work dinners, someone a little too generous with gifts. I didn't pay much attention until the whole thing blew up. Turns out Melissa wasn't just having work dinners. She was having an affair with her boss. Married man, mid-30s, 2 kids at home. And the kicker? She met him through Sabrina's job. Sabrina had finally landed a position at a small firm, and Melissa would sometimes swing by. That's where she got introduced. And like clockwork, she repeated her mother's greatest hits. Flirty texts, secret hotels, expensive dinners charged to joint accounts. How it came out was almost poetic. The guy's wife found the texts on his phone. Screenshots, receipts, everything. She confronted him, and he confessed. And instead of keeping it quiet, she went straight to Jonah. Sent him the whole package. Jonah didn't take it calmly. From what I heard, he packed up her things in trash bags and tossed them into the parking lot of their apartment. When she came crying, he threw her wedding ring at her face. Within a week, he'd shut down their joint account and started the lease termination. Marriage, over, just like that. When my brother told me, I actually laughed. Not because I was happy she was hurting, but because I couldn't ignore the irony. Sabrina cheated on me with some clown and wrecked our family. 2 years later, Melissa did the exact same thing to her husband. Like mother, like daughter. It didn't take long before my phone rang. Melissa. I let it go to voicemail the first time. Same with the second. By the third call, I answered just to hear what she had to say. Her voice was cracked, desperate. Dad, please. I don't know what to do. Jonah kicked me out. He took all the money. I can't pay rent. I can't pay my car. I need help. I stayed silent for a second. Let her panic fill the line. Then I asked calmly, are you calling to apologize for lying about me in court? She stuttered. Dad, this isn't the same. I was protecting Mom. You don't understand, I cut her off. No, Melissa. That's an excuse. I asked if you were ready to admit you lied. Yes or no? Silence. Then a broken, I can't. I was doing what I thought was right. Then you've got your answer, I said. You're an adult. Figure it out. Get a job. Get 3 jobs. I don't care. But don't expect me to clean up your mess. She started crying, begging, told me she couldn't afford a lawyer, told me she was scared of being evicted, said she'd learned her lesson. But all I heard was the same thing I'd heard from her mother for years. Choices dressed up as accidents. I told her flat out, call me when you're ready to admit the truth. Until then, don't waste my time. Then I hung up. I won't lie, part of me felt cold afterward, but another part of me felt relief. For the first time, Melissa was facing the real world without my safety net. She thought siding with her mother was the winning team. Now she was seeing where that team really led. Motel rooms, debt, and a marriage ruined before it even had a chance. I didn't celebrate. I didn't brag. Every lie they told, every betrayal, every courtroom stunt, it was all catching up to them. I didn't need to lift a finger. Sabrina was already circling the drain. Word got back to me through a cousin that her sister's husband had finally had enough. He'd tolerated her long enough, eating his food, hogging the couch, running up the utilities. He told her to pack her stuff and leave. She had nowhere else to go, so she ended up in one of those run-down weekly motels, the kind where the carpets smell like mildew, and the parking lot has more broken-down cars than working ones. It wasn't long before my phone lit up with her number. I answered, just to see how far she'd sink. Her voice was all shaky, trying to sound pitiful. Can we talk? It's about Melissa. She needs stability right now, and I can't give it to her. If you could just lend me money for a deposit and first month's rent on an apartment, it would help so much. For her sake. I laughed out loud. The only deposit you're getting from me is the one Chad left in my bedroom. She gasped like I'd slapped her through the phone. Then the tears started. You're cruel. You've changed. You used to care. You should be the bigger person. Forgiveness means forgiving, I cut in. Doesn't mean financing your bad decisions. You made your bed. Or should I say, you made mine his. Sleep in it. She tried arguing more, tried turning it into some morality speech about family and compassion, but I hung up. I wasn't about to waste my night listening to her rewrite history again. That was just the beginning. Melissa started blowing up my phone next. At first, it was the same routine. Dad, please, just a little help. Then it turned into full-on panic. I'm behind on rent. I can't keep up. My car is about to get repossessed. She was working some low-wage retail job, barely making enough to cover food and gas. I'd warned her. I told her she wasn't special, that she wasn't entitled to a free ride just because she carried my last name. But she didn't listen. She thought siding with her mother meant she'd always have a safety net. Now she was finding out that net had holes in it big enough to fall straight through. The more desperate her calls got, the calmer I felt. It wasn't revenge. It was balance. She had played a part in trying to wreck me. She stood in a courtroom and called me a monster. She testified against her own father. Now she was realizing that choices come with a price tag. One night, my phone buzzed again. Melissa's number. I almost ignored it. But curiosity won. Her voice was quiet this time, broken. Dad, I'm sorry. I waited. No words, just breathing. Finally, I said, sorry for what? For what I said in court. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was protecting Mom. I thought, her voice cracked. I thought I was doing the right thing. I sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. That's not an apology, Melissa. That's an excuse. Big difference. She started crying, begging me not to hang up. But I ended the call. Because if 18 years of raising her taught me anything, it's that words without accountability mean nothing. The very next week, I got a message on Facebook from a name I didn't expect. Jonah. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't see through them at first. I believed Melissa, I believed her mom, and I thought you were the bad guy. But after what she did to me, I get it now. I understand why you cut them off. You were right. I read that message twice. Not because I needed validation, but because it was almost funny. The guy they swore was their golden ticket, the husband who was supposed to give Melissa the life she thought she deserved, was now on my side. That was the kind of closure money can't buy. So here I am, 2 years later, living in the same house my grandfather gave me. No Sabrina, no Melissa, no constant lies, no guilt trips, no courtroom games. I eat what I want. I sleep when I want. I watch whatever the hell I want on TV. And I don't answer to anyone. People tell me I'm too harsh, that I should forgive, that I should help them back on their feet. But here's the thing. They didn't trip. They jumped. Sabrina jumped when she chose to cheat. Melissa jumped when she chose to testify against me. They jumped, and now they want me to break their fall. I'm done being their safety net. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.